If I had $1 for every time I got used and dumped like a broken coffee cup, I could buy myself a new life in Hawaii. Too bad I didn't have that dollar. I had only Himalaxmi Alpha and the unbearable weight of knowing I wasn't enough. I remember the day he returned. It was raining, not the gentle rain that makes you feel alive, but the cold, relentless kind that seeps through your bones, like the memories of him leaving me behind, unhealed. He appeared at my apartment doorway, looking like he always did, tall, sharp, impossibly handsome, the kind of alpha that turns heads even on a Tuesday. But the difference today was the way his eyes didn't find me first. They found someone else. His ex. And my stomach dropped so fast I thought I'd leave a permanent bruise there. "You're still here." Alex's voice was careful, polite, almost like he was walking on glass. "I live here," I muttered, pretending I wasn't a tornado of jealousy and heartbreak. I should have known better. Alphas don't come back for omegas they left behind. They come back for closure, for nostalgia, or worse, for rekindling old flames. Not for me. I was the placeholder, the convenient warmth when no one else was around. The thought made bile rise in my throat. "You look good," he said, and I almost laughed, almost cried, and almost threw a pillow at him all at once. There it was, the charm that had once made me fall stupidly, desperately in love. I hated him for it, and yet, in some sick, twisted way, I loved it still. "I've been surviving," I said, trying to make my voice sound steady, but it cracked. Of course it cracked. Omegas are fragile that way, particularly when they love the wrong alpha. Alex's ex, a tall, lean man with an effortless grin, stood beside him like he owned the universe, or at least Alex's heart. And in that moment, I realized my place in the world wasn't beside Alex. It had never been. I was just a stopgap, a consolation prize. The first night he stayed in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against the window like 1,000 tiny needles. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every memory, every laugh, every touch I had shared with Alex, and I hated that I remembered all of it with such vivid detail. Omegas are cursed like that. We feel everything too much, love too much, burn too bright, and when it ends, we're the ones left smoking. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, making coffee for both of them, humming a song I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted. Even now, he was effortlessly domestic, effortlessly perfect. "I thought you liked your coffee black," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice trembled. "I remember," he said, not looking at me. He handed the cup to his ex, who smiled that infuriating, affectionate smile that I had once given only to Alex. And then I understood I had been replaced, even in the small things, the memories that I had once thought were ours alone. "I have some errands today," I said quickly. Anything to get out of the apartment, away from the laughter I used to belong to. Alex looked up at me then, for the first time in what felt like years. His eyes softened, but there was regret there, too careful, measured regret, not the kind that could heal my wounds. "I didn't save it," I said, cutting him off. My voice was sharper than I intended, slicing through the fragile tension between us. "I know what this is. I'm not the one you came back for." His jaw tightened, and for a brief second, I saw something real, something raw. But then it was gone, replaced by the calm alpha mask I had learned to despise. I left. The streets of my city were drenched, reflecting neon lights like shattered dreams on asphalt. I walked aimlessly, letting the rain wash over me, hoping it would scrub away the sting of rejection, the hollow ache of being the substitute. And yet, even in my despair, there was a strange kind of beauty. America, my home, looked almost cinematic under the rain. Streetlights blurred into halos, traffic reflected like watercolors on wet roads, and for a moment, I forgot Alex, forgot the heartbreak. Just a moment. 2 days later, I got a text from him. I ignored it. Another text. And another. Each one dripping with charm, regret, longing, the exact combination that had once destroyed me. But I was learning, slowly, painfully, to protect my heart. Omegas are resilient, too, if they choose to be. Then, late one night, he showed up again. Alone this time. No ex. Just him, standing at my door, soaked and shivering, the rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead. He started, but I didn't let him finish. Don't, I said firmly. I'm done being the fallback. I'm done being second choice. He sighed, the kind of sigh that carries weight, history, and unspoken apologies. I know. I made a mistake, he said quietly, eyes pleading. I didn't know what I wanted, and I lost myself and maybe using the process. The vulnerability in his voice was enough to make me hesitate. Omegas, even the wounded ones, can't help but notice cracks in the armor of the alphas they love. I can't just forget how it felt, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I can't pretend I didn't hurt. Alex stepped closer, dangerously close. His presence enveloped me, warm and familiar, and I felt my defenses falter. The ache of longing, the frustration of loss, the bittersweet memory of what we had, it all collided into one unbearable moment. I don't want a replacement, he said, eyes searching mine. I want you, only you. For a second, I imagined reaching out, letting him in, letting the warmth of his arms soothe the storm inside me. But then, I remembered the nights alone, the cold pillow beside me, the emptiness that had become my companion. Could I trust him again? Could an Omega survive being shattered twice by the same Alpha? I need time, I whispered. I need to know if us, can really survive. He nodded, understanding, but his eyes didn't leave mine. There was a promise there, a promise I wanted to believe, a promise that maybe, just maybe, heartbreak could lead to something tender, something real. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself a tiny, fragile hope. Omegas can heal after all, even the broken ones. And maybe, if Alex was truly willing to fight for minute for nostalgia, not for convenience, but for us, I could let my heart beat for him again. But that night, as he left my apartment, I stayed by the window, watching the rain blur the world outside, and wondered if hope was enough to mend the cracks in a heart that had already been shattered. The days stretched on like a slow, torturous melody. I tried to distract myself, work, gym, music, even a few meaningless dates, but nothing could erase the image of Alex standing at my doorway, soaked from the rain, his eyes raw and desperate. Omegas have a memory like that. We feel everything, and love imprints itself in the marrow of our bones. 2 weeks later, Alex called. Not a text, not a casual check-in, he came to see me. His ex was gone, vanished like smoke, leaving only the messy remnants of Alex's emotions and our unfinished story. I opened the door cautiously. He didn't reach for me immediately, didn't demand forgiveness or plead. He simply stood there, vulnerable and unguarded. I'm not going to rush you, he said, voice low, trembling slightly. I needed you to know I'm here, that I want this to work properly this time. No substitutes, no mistakes. I studied him, my heart hammering in a rhythm I recognized too well. This Alpha, the one who had broken me, now seemed almost fragile, human in ways I had never allowed myself to notice before. I realized that my anger, my heartbreak, had blinded me to the moments when he truly cared. Why now? I asked, keeping my tone steady. Why didn't you fight for me before? His gaze faltered. I was scared, he admitted. Scared I wasn't enough. Scared I'd ruin you. But I've realized, the only way to ruin us is to give up entirely. And I'm not giving up. I swallowed hard, the words both a bomb and a knife. Omegas live for Alpha promises, but we also know how fragile they are. I wanted to trust him, to believe, but my heart was still bruised. I need time, I whispered again, echoing the phrase from our last encounter. I need to see if you mean it, if you really want me, not just the comfort of familiarity. Alex nodded, understanding. Time, he agreed. I'll wait. I'll fight for you every day if I have to. Weeks passed, and slowly, cautiously, I let him back into my life. It wasn't easy. Every glance, every touch carried the weight of the past, but there was something undeniably magnetic about our connection. Alphas and Omegas, when they are meant to be, have a pull that defies logic, a gravity that draws them together despite all the pain. We started small. Coffee dates in the morning, walks through the neon-lit streets of the city, conversations that lasted into the early hours. I noticed the little things, how he remembered my favorite songs, how he'd brush a strand of hair from my face with a gentleness that made my chest ache, how his scent seemed to wrap around me like a second skin. The intimacy was subtle at first, but it grew. A hand brushed mine, lingering slightly. A hug held a little longer than necessary. A soft kiss planted on my temple while we watched the rain. And with each gesture, my heart softened. One night, we found ourselves on the rooftop of my apartment building, the city lights stretching below us like a galaxy of artificial stars. Rain had passed, leaving the air crisp and clean. Alex stood close, his hand finding mine, fingers entwining naturally. "You've healed," he said quietly, eyes scanning mine for truth. "Or at least, you're letting yourself heal." "I'm trying," I admitted. "It's not easy, loving you after everything. It scares me." He nodded, a small, understanding smile curving his lips. "I know, and I'll be patient. I'll earn your trust every day. You're the only one I want me, Omega, not a replacement, not a memory. You." My chest tightened, and I realized something incredible. I believed him. Believed that he meant it. The alpha who had once left me, who had seemed so distant and untouchable, now stood vulnerable, offering everything he had. Slowly, I leaned into him, resting my forehead against his chest. His arms wrapped around me, firm yet tender, and I felt a warmth that went beyond physical attraction. It was belonging, safety, and love all at once. "I've wanted this for so long," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Even when it hurt, even when I thought I was just a substitute. I never stopped loving you." Alex tilted my chin up, his lips brushing against mine in a kiss that was soft, unhurried, and full of meaning. It wasn't fiery or desperate, it was patient, promising. The kind of kiss that spoke of forgiveness and hope. Omegas have a way of feeling the truth in touches, and I could feel every word in that kiss. "I'm yours truly, fully." We spent that night talking, laughing, sharing confessions we had kept hidden during the months apart. Every story, every laugh, every tear strengthened the fragile bridge we were building between us. And slowly, I realized that the heart can mend, that the wounds of love do not have to define the future, they can guide it. In the weeks that followed, our relationship transformed. Alex was no longer the distant, unreachable alpha. He was attentive, loving, and present. I was no longer the hesitant, fragile Omega. I was his, whole and unafraid. The intimacy we shared deepened not just physically, but emotionally. Handholds turned into embraces. Kisses turned into whispers of devotion. Nights alone turned into nights of laughter and shared dreams. One evening, we stood by the window of my apartment, watching the sunset bleed across the skyline. The city was quiet, almost serene, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. "Do you really mean it?" I asked, leaning against his chest, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat grounding me. "Every word," he murmured. "You are my Omega, my choice, my home." I smiled, tears brimming in my eyes, not of sorrow, but of relief, of joy, of love finally realized. "Then, let's start over," I said softly. "Together. No substitutes. No mistakes." He pressed a gentle kiss to my temple. "Together," he agreed, his voice warm and certain. From that moment, the past no longer haunted us. The pain became a memory, a reminder of how fragile love can be, and how powerful it is when nurtured with honesty and devotion. We learned to communicate, to support each other, and to cherish every stolen moment of intimacy. Omegas and alphas, when they find their balance, create a harmony that is as tender as it is passionate, as grounding as it is exhilarating. On a rainy afternoon, months later, we walked through the city streets, holding hands as if the world had shrunk to just the two of us. He laughed at a joke I made, and I leaned into him, feeling the steady heat of his arm around mine. "You know," he said, eyes sparkling with mischief, "I never thought I'd have to fight so hard to be with you, but I'm glad I did." I laughed, the sound bright and full, echoing off the buildings around us. "You better be. I wasn't going to make it easy." He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine, and for a long moment, we simply breathed together, content in the quiet knowledge that we had found each other again. The rain began to fall lightly, soft and warm, and we let it soak us, laughing like teenagers in the streets of a city that had once seemed so lonely. Every drop felt like renewal, a baptism of second chances and enduring love. I realized then that being an Omega isn't about weakness, it's about feeling deeply, loving fully, and having the courage to rebuild even when your heart has been shattered. And loving Alex, my Alpha, meant embracing every part of him, the past, the flaws, the vulnerabilities, and knowing that he would do the same for me. Under the glowing streetlights, soaked and smiling, I felt the truth of it all. Love, real love, is not about perfection. It's about patience, forgiveness, and the willingness to choose each other every day. And I chose him. He chose me. And finally, after all the heartbreak, all the nights of doubt and loneliness, I felt whole. I felt home. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.